Hi, y'all. I'm Dick Armey, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. I love saying that. You know, we Texans are pretty proud of our little old state. I don't know if you'd ever noticed that. I always like to point out in Texas we don't polish our boots very often, but we never polish anybody else's. I was just talking to David Frizzell from Indiana, and for those of you who are used to high country culture, you'll understand my impulse was to call him Lefty. Lefty Frizzell, the great country singer. I know some of you folks are old enough to know. But anyway, he's bragging about his Indiana, and I don't mind. You ought to brag about your state. And we Texans like to give our respects to your states and appreciate them too. And I said to David, I said, you know, Indiana make a damn fine county back home. Now that I got that off my chest. Speaking of Lefty, you're going to honor one of my favorite economists today. Poor old Adam Smith be rolling over in his grave. But Richard Vedder, Dr. Richard Vedder is what I call, first of all, he is a good economist and very much deserving of your recognition. A recognition that had I the capacity to give, would have given myself to him. Now, having said that, let's get down to the truth of the matter. But no, Richard and I have had an association for years. He is a contrarian, and that's what makes him so lovable. And to actually believe in freedom, dignity, respect, and self-respect, and get tenured in an American university is in itself quite a remarkable accomplishment. So I look forward to that. Now, I wanted, speaking of economists, I wanted to start off my comments today by citing one of the great American economists and showing how his wonderful insight applies to your work. And that economist, of course, is John Wayne. You didn't get that part, did you? You will remember in the movie The Cowboys, when Bruce Durr did one of the most despicable acts in the history of all Western movies. He shot John Wayne. You remember that? How many of you remember that? And there he was lying in the dust, and he looked up at the young cowboys, and he said, if death comes and you have done all you can do, and you have done the best you can do, then you're ready for it. Now, that is probably the clearest expression of the equal marginal conditions of allocative efficiency I have ever heard. Will you agree, Richard? Or, speaking in a little less technical terms, it is a perfect description of having your indifference curve tangent to your budget constraint, which is something we all try to do. Even if only intuitively with a lack of awareness. You do it every day. But I want to focus on the budget constraint. Because, in fact, what we must do in our personal lives and in our work in public office is make allocative decisions to ration scarce resources among competing ends. And it is a discipline that is forced upon us by the fact that we have an awareness of a budget constraint. And as members of state office, county office, city office, you have an awareness of a budget constraint. That's what sets you aside from members of the national legislative body. They are really quite unaware. Armey's axiom is, by the way, that no person will spend someone else's money as wisely as they spend their own. And that is proven every day in Washington. As a matter of fact, it has been my observation that there are only three definable groups of people who have the privilege of spending somebody else's money: children, thieves, and politicians. and that they all need responsible adult supervision, and probably incarceration on occasions. You send your children to their room, you can send the thief to the pen, but where do you send the politician? Home. Yeah, that's the most frightening thing of all for them. But at any rate, what we do, and if we have an awareness and a discipline about it, it translates into good service on behalf of the constituents that elected us, is we allocate the scarce resources among these competing ends, and we do it in such a way, just as we do at home or in our business, that we live within our means. Now, what they do in Washington is they live beyond their means to the tune of $450 billion. How in the world can you do that? And do it consistently, apparently forever. But you can't do that. You can't do that in the state government in Indiana. You couldn't do it in the city. You certainly couldn't do it in your county. Only in Washington to get away with that. And it's because you have this awareness and are compelled by this awareness, and oftentimes regulations, constitutional circumstance, definition, you are required to live within your means, that you set an example before Washington. Unfortunately, an example that is little heeded nor rarely attended to by Washington, but still you set the standard. In other words, if you want to learn about how do you do good governance, I say look to the states. Now, that doesn't make you inherently smarter or better people than the people in Washington. It means you have your decision criteria mechanisms are governed by a condition that they have the luxury of ignoring, the budget constraint. Now, I'm watching this process of where we are in our economy today. The budget constraint, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a news flash that I'm sure you were not aware of, is getting tighter. How many of you had noticed that? The fact is, even today, picking up USA Today, I noticed that because of the high gasoline prices, toll receipts are down. Tax receipts are down. Less revenue, and expenses going up. The economy is getting tighter, and we're just, frankly, just not rolling in good times. So that your job's getting harder. Now the question is, the complications to your job are increased on a double-fold basis. First, the job in and of itself, by virtue of the the resources that you have to allocate, are diminished, and secondly, the demands that come to you are expanded. People say, we need you to help us make up for our shortfall. Now, part of the problem is, in allocative issues, is you don't have the luxury to rather, with indifference as it were, do what Schumpeter called creative destruction. If you're going to allocate more resources to something in a world of scarcity, you have to be free to allocate resources from something.